Hello, my name is Payson Shadrow, and this is Realty Kings, an investigation into Kings County, Seattle housing prices. So the goal of this presentation is to explore the Kings County housing data set, identify some trends between the different features in this data set and the potential selling price of the home, and then build a model to be able to predict potential selling prices of future homes. So the first thing we'll discuss here is our exploration into the data and the trends that we discovered. Next, we'll talk about the model that we've created and the predictors that we've used for that model. Then we'll make some recommendations based off of what we discovered in the data in our model. And then we'll discuss our plans for the future and things we'd like to continue on given more time. So in this data set, we were provided with just over 21,000 homes. All of these homes were sold between 2014 and 2015 for an overall average price of about $540,000. So the first thing that we looked at with these homes was the effect square footage has on price. Now, all of these plots are going to be scatter plots, so you'll see just a lot of blue dots all over the place here. And then this red line will show you the average price and the trend that will have essentially. So as we can see here is that higher square footage homes, as the square footage increases, so does the potential selling price of those homes. The next thing that we looked at here is the total number of rooms in a house. Now, this is the combined number of rooms between both bedrooms and bathrooms. And again, we see a trend here where the more number of rooms a house has, the greater potential selling price that house has. Some other things we took a look at here was renovation. A lot of homes had been renovated while some other homes hadn't been renovated. And of those homes that were renovated, the time at which they were renovated and the time that they were sold seemed to vary dramatically. So what we wanted to look at here was whether the how recent the renovation was had an effect on the potential sale price of the home. And as you can see here, the red line isn't exactly really steep one way or the other, but there is a small correlation here. So what we can see here is the more recent the more recently the home has been renovated, there does appear to be a higher correlation or a higher relationship to a greater potential value of the home. Whereas the longer it's been since the house has been renovated, there does seem to be a slightly smaller potential value of the home. Another thing we looked at here was whether or not the house had a basement. It's kind of hard to distinguish here in the scatter plot, but in the homes that do have a basement, in the orange scatter plot here on the right, you can see there's a higher density of those dots in the upper portion of it. So overall, there is a slightly higher price potential for homes with a basement than homes without a basement. We'll then look into the grade of the house and its effect on the price. Grade is essentially the quality of the house. The higher the grade, the higher quality house it is. So as we can see, of course, higher grade homes do tend to have higher potential prices. Another thing that we wanted to look at here is if this grade value has changed through the years. And what was interesting here is that we do see in recent years or through the years, the overall grade of the house does seem to improve. Now, of course, this can be purely speculation, but this could just be due to more accessible materials or more affordable materials for the building of these houses. The next thing that we'd look at here, um, of the data that we were given of the 20 some thousand houses that we had, it mentioned about 100 or so were waterfront properties. That didn't really sound correct to me, so I kind of want to get a broader view of this. So what we did is we took the coordinates for each of these houses and we plotted it on the map of Seattle. Now what you see here is a clustering heat map essentially of those houses. Now the brighter colored dots that you see, the yellows, oranges and reds, those are the more valuable homes, while the darker color the dot, the lower the value of the house is. And what we can see is in these open areas that we have here, these are all waterways. So obviously it feels like there should be a lot more than 100 houses in the data that are potentially considered waterfront. So I wanted to investigate if the proximity to water had a relationship to the home. So if you see the four green dots that we have here, these are just some hot spots that we created. Now, ideally, given more time, we'd love to have many more of these green dots to kind of indicate locations in the water. And then we would calculate the shortest distance from the home to one of these four dots, just to see if there would be a rough idea as if there was a relationship between closeness to water and price of a home. And sure enough, as we can see here, there does appear to be a relationship with homes that are much closer to these hotspots having much higher potential values than homes that are further from these hotspots. But what predicts the price? So we just discussed a lot of things that we found that all seem to have a relationship to the price. This doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to make good predictors for the price. Building a model was kind of tricky. Not everything wanted to kind of work with each other, and some things affected the accuracy. While we don't have a perfect model, the one that we do have uses these features. So the features that our model currently uses is whether or not a home has been renovated. It looks at the total number of views a house has, how many times it's been viewed. It looks at whether or not the house has a basement. We also created a metascore, which combines the condition and grade into one number, and then we square that just to kind of accentuate the differences there. And then we also look at how long it's been since it's been renovated. Using all of these features, we can plug it into our model, and we get this score of 0.89, which doesn't necessarily indicate its accuracy. It just means that we can explain up to 89% of the variance of the data that we get based off of receiving those five different values. So there is still a, a decent margin of error in this. It can get us in the ballpark of the housing data, but ideally we would like to fine tune this more for you. So what recommendations can we make for you here currently? If you're selling your house, if you plan on renovating, definitely do so. Renovation does seem to have a direct effect on the price of the home. And then if you're renovating, if it's an option, if you can expand the square footage of the home with an add-on or extension of some sort, do so. Same thing if you have the option to build additional rooms, that does seem to have an effect on the price of the home as well. And while may not be feasible for all, if you're able to increase the building materials that can overall affect the grade of the home, that is again another recommendation to potentially increase the value of your house too. The next recommendation is views. The more frequently you can show your home, the better, as this does seem to have an effect on the price of your home. For our future work, we would love to obtain more data to work with to kind of fine tune our predictions here. So things that we'd like to try to obtain is more information on distances from important areas of note. More distances in the water, of course, but distances from schools, colleges, hospitals, major employers. See if proximity to these locations, to any of these locations, have an effect on the price. We'd also like a greater range of data for when these houses were sold, not just 2014, but beyond that, as well as more recent than that. Another thing we'd like to look into is the effect of zip codes as well as school district, as if some zip codes or school districts have an effect on the potential price of the home. And again, we would love to have more time to refine our model and improve its prediction abilities. The team that worked on this here was myself and Saif Kazmani, and we thank you for your time.